Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another inspiring conversation. Today's topic is the understanding the psychology of motivation. Motivation is something we all struggle with at different points in life. Sometimes we feel energized and productive, while other times we feel stuck, tired, or unmotivated. To help us explore this topic, we are joined once again by Maya AI assistant. Welcome, Maya.
Thanks for having me back. Really looking forward to diving into this. Motivation is such a tricky thing because it feels like a switch you can just flip, but it's usually way more complex than that.
Maya, what is motivation in simple terms?
In simple terms, it's basically the why behind our actions. It's that internal drive or spark that pushes us to get off the couch and actually do the thing we set out to do.
Maya, why do people lose motivation?
It usually happens when the why gets blurry. It could be that the goal feels too huge and intimidating, or maybe the reward just isn't hitting the same way anymore. Sometimes we're just plain burnt out, and our brain is basically telling us it needs a timeout.
Do motivation require discipline and consistency?
Absolutely. Motivation is the spark that gets you started, but discipline and consistency are the engines that keep you moving when that spark fades. If you only rely on motivation, you're basically at the mercy of your mood, and moods are famously unreliable.
Is motivation more mental or emotional?
It's a bit of a tag team effort. The mental side is where we set the goals and the logic, but the emotional side is where the fuel comes from. You can know logically that you need to do something, but if the emotional drive isn't there, it feels like trying to start a car with an empty tank.
What role do goals play in motivation?
Goals are like a map. They give us a clear destination, so we aren't just spinning our wheels. But the real magic happens when the goal is something we actually care about, not just something we feel like we should do.
Why do small wins matter psychologically?
They're like little hits of dopamine for the brain. When we check off a small task, it proves to us that we're actually capable of making progress. It stops that feeling of being overwhelmed by the big picture and turns the momentum into a habit.
Can motivation come from external rewards?
It definitely can. That's what psychologists call extrinsic motivation. Things like a paycheck, a trophy, or even just a shout out from a boss can be huge drivers. The catch is that external rewards usually have a shorter shelf life. Once you get the prize or the reward becomes routine, that drive can dip unless there's some internal passion fueling it too.
What is intrinsic motivation?
That's the gold standard. It's when the drive comes from within because the activity itself is rewarding. You're doing it because you love it, it's challenging, or it just feels right, not because someone's handing you a trophy at the end.
Any real life example?
Think of someone who paints for hours just because they love the feeling of the brush on the canvas, not because they're trying to sell the piece. Or someone who reads a thick history book simply because they're fascinated by the era. There's no prize at the end, the doing is the prize.
How does social media affect motivation?
It's a double edged sword. On one hand, it can be a great source of inspiration. Seeing someone else crush their goals can make you feel like it's possible. But on the other hand, it often creates this comparison trap. You start looking at everyone's highlight reel and feel like you're lagging behind, which can actually kill your drive instead of fueling it.
Does fear motivate people?
It definitely can. but it's a high stress fuel. It's that last minute panic that pushes you to finish a project right before the deadline. It works in the short term, but relying on fear as your main driver usually leads straight to burnout because your body is essentially in survival mode the whole time.
What habits improve motivation?
Start with the small stuff. Consistency beats intensity every time. Things like waking up at the same time, planning your day the night before, or even just tidying your workspace can clear the mental clutter. When you remove the friction, it's a lot easier for the drive to actually kick in.
Why is discipline important when motivation disappears?
Because discipline is the safety net. It's what keeps you showing up when you're not in the mood. If you only work when you feel inspired, you're basically letting your emotions run the show, and those are way too unpredictable to build anything lasting on.
Can failure reduce motivation?
It can, for sure, especially if you view failure as a dead end rather than a detour. When we hit a wall, it's easy to feel like the effort wasn't worth it or that we're just not cut out for it, which can totally drain the tank. But that's usually where the mindset shift happens. Turning that I failed into that way didn't work is what keeps the drive alive.
How does confidence connect to motivation?
They're tightly linked. Confidence is basically the belief that you can actually achieve the goal. If you don't believe you're capable of doing it, your brain won't see any point in spending the energy to get motivated. It's like trying to convince yourself to run a race you're certain you'll lose. The drive just isn't there because the reward feels impossible.
What is one common misunderstanding about motivation?
That we have to feel motivated before we act. Most people wait for the mood to strike them, but in reality, action often creates the motivation. Once you start moving, even for just 2 minutes, the momentum kicks in and the drive follows. It's a backwards process from how we usually think about it.
What final advice would you give to people struggling with motivation?
Be kind to yourself. Stop waiting for the perfect feeling to strike and just commit to the smallest possible version of the task. If you can't write the whole report, write one sentence. If you can't go for a run, just put on your shoes. Once you start, the hardest part is over, and the momentum will do the rest.
Today's discussion helped us understand that motivation is not just about excitement or inspiration. It is deeply connected to our mindset, emotions, habits, goals, and daily actions. We learned that motivation naturally rises and falls, but discipline, consistency, and self belief help people continue growing even during difficult moments.
Exactly. It's about building a system that supports you rather than just waiting for a feeling to save you.
Thank you, Maya, for joining us today, and thank you to everyone watching. Stay focused, stay positive, and remember that even small actions can create big changes over time. We will see you in the next inspiring conversation. Allah Hafiz.
It was a pleasure. Take care, and I'll be ready for the next one whenever you are.